This week on LCARA Ham Radio, we go to our second site for the Remote HF Station Site Survey. We're going to check out some frequencies and look around a little bit to see where might an antenna go. This week on LCARA Ham Radio. Well, after last week's video, we had several comments about felling trees correctly, that's for sure. But we got the power back on at the 88 site where we did our first site survey, and I'm proud to announce things are fine and everybody is fine. So let's move on to our second site. Alrighty, so we're ready to do site number 2, site survey number 2 for the remote HF station. What I have done is I'm using my carbon fiber and mast to put the off-center fed dipole. Now this is the same antenna that we used at site A, which is essentially the what we call internally the 88 repeater, because we're on 146.880 on the repeater, but it's on top of a mountain, and there's another big 1,000-foot tower on that same mountain used by Kentucky Education Television, or KET. So I'm using the same antenna. The short end is over here in this little clearing, and then the long end is stretched out this way. Difficult to see in the video, but is towards the shack. Not at the shack, but towards it. And again, we're just using this from a receive standpoint, not from a transmit or SWR standpoint. So we're just seeing if we're going to see banding on a frequency band. Are we seeing a noise floor that's higher than what we saw at the 88 side? You know, as I look around this wooded area, there's a house over there, and there's another antenna over there as well, a set of antennas. But as we go through the woods here, some of you can see through the trees a little bit. We're on a pretty high mountain. You can see another ridge way over there if you can see through the trees. That's hard to do though in a video, but you can see that there's nothing else here. But that doesn't mean there's not something on the bands. We might have a transformer in the area that's not very good. We may have some type of electronics that somebody has connected that still is reaching over here that might be detrimental to us trying to set up a remote HF station. And that brings up one other thing. It's not only about the noise floor and potential interference. This site, we have permission by the owner to utilize it for our ham radio purposes. Now, that's nice, but at the same time, we don't want to, outlive our welcome, so to speak. We don't want to do things up here that would be detrimental to maybe what the owner would want to do up here, because we don't own this. We just lease really where the shack is primarily, and the tower that the shack uses for our antennas. As you see, we've been up there and we've got the solar up there and some other things. So we don't want to, be a bad leaser. We want to make sure that whatever we do put up here isn't going to have such a footprint that it would preclude the actual owner from doing what they need to do. So anyway, that's just a little bit of what we're doing today. In our next segment, I'm going to be inside the truck. We're going to hook up the antenna cable to the ICOM 7300, and we're going to start going through the bands to see if we see any unwanted interference or frequency banding from some type of a bad transformer or electrical device. So I'll be right back. Okay, well, we're in the truck, and I'm looking at the band scope here for 6 meters. And again, we're just looking at receive. I don't have any preamps turned on or anything like that. And you can see the noise floor. We've got the AF knob right in the middle. Noise floor is essentially 0. So you can see that we don't have any unwanted information or interference or anything like that really poking up much. I don't see any banding on the frequencies as I go through. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but overall you can see as I go through the band that this is pretty quiet. Now again, this is today. Sometimes what's good today might be bad tomorrow, but we just have to get an idea if there's any external influences up here on top of this mountain. And at least on 6 meters, I am not seeing any. So we're approaching 53. And up we go to 54. And again, it's just quiet as a bell up here. So, we may not use 6 meters a whole lot, but we have a pretty good idea of about how quiet it can be on a day like this. There is a front that's going to be moving through. Sometimes that quietens things down. We're still early in or late in winter, so there's no thunderstorms that are showing up on some of the other bands, as we shall see. So 6 meters is looking good. Let's move into the next segment to 10 meters. Okay, so now we're on 10 meters. Now, 10 meters runs from about 28 all the way up to 29.7. And again, no preamps are turned on. A little bit more noise where the AF is currently sitting there in the center, but not bad. Again, it's not really registering on the top left S meter, if you will, for a noise floor. So I'm pretty happy with the noise floor. I can turn that down if I want to. We do see a little bit of activity over here to the right. Let's see if we've got some digital going, because we're down in the digital portion of the band. Sure enough. So somebody's doing some digital here on 10 meters today. Now let's go through the rest of the band and see if we see any real interference. Don't see any banding here, which you sometimes see if you've got a bad electronic device. We've got about an S1 on noise, again with the AF knob where it is. And we're going to go up to 29.7. This time of day, not a lot of activity on 10 meters. There was something. Let's see if it comes back. Yeah, it must have been pretty ephemeral, so we'll move on. Pretty clean, especially as we get higher up in the band. Noise floor came down just a smidgen, so 29.7 is about as high as we can go. About right there. So pretty clean on 10 meters. So again, environmentally, nothing is, blowing 10 meters out. So let us move to the next band, 12 meters. Let's see what we can see. Okay, so same position of the AF knob there. So we are going to go ahead and, not the AF, I keep calling that AF, sorry, the RF squelch knob, if you will. Sorry, my apologies. And I'll try and earlier in the video refer back to the RF squelch. But in any event, AF's just your volume. We're on 12 meters. This starts at about 24,890 and goes from there. And I've got the audio up just a smidge. I think there's a little bit of digital. I haven't seen any voice, but let's go through and see what we can hear. Some CW. Some digital. Really clean. And again, the noise floor is essentially nothing. If we come off any signal, you can see we're not even showing anything with the RF squelch knob where it is. So pretty happy with the noise. We're going to go up to 24.99. This is a pretty narrow band, so we're just going to slowly make our way up there. You can see we're out of the band right there. So, yeah, pretty pleased with 12. This might make a good location for getting some contacts on some of those bands that aren't used very often. Well, in our next segment, we're going to try 15 meters. Be right back. Okay, so now we're on 15 meters, same positions on everything, and pretty quiet. Again, really quiet. I'm really happy with that. I'm seeing some traffic on the digital modes. Let's move up just a little bit. There's some CW. Very copyable. Noise floor again is really low here on today, so really happy with that. There's some digital. Pretty quiet, a little more noise as we work up the band. Not seeing any banding from interference. Something there. And we're out. So again, very clean band. Very happy with that. Again, We're looking for environmental noise, something in the surrounding area that might interfere. Not seeing any of that. Next, 20 meters. Alrighty, I know I said 20 meters, but really 17 is next in line. And again, one of those narrow bands, but there's some activity today. Noise floor, very low. Again, everything's looking good up here on top of this mountain. Pretty happy. Well, let's go up about 100 and let's see what we get. Definitely some digital activity. Nice, a little SSB action. And again, the bands are quiet, so it's going to be easy to hear people. Some more SSB. And we're almost done here. Here's somebody at 165, which here in America is exactly as high as you can go. I can't go any higher because of spillage. 168 is the very top, but you should be down about 3 kilohertz, excuse me. Good deal. So, what do we got there? 17 meters is clear today, and up here on the mountain, not any interference, creating, bands or anything of interference. Noise floor is good. Pretty happy. Now we're going to move to 20 meters. Okay, so now we've arrived at 20 meters, a very hopping band, especially during the day. And there's a digital portion here that is getting, a lot of traffic today, which we would kind of expect, as well as over on the SSB section here in just a minute. But look at that noise floor. Again, the RF squelch is in its same position right in the middle. Very quiet, no interference showing up. Lots of really good signals of the digital, and you can see multiple stations out there working 20 meters. So let's work our way up 20 meters and let's see what we can find. There's some CW. Some more CW. Let's go to what I think is a digital station. Yep. Now let's move on up. Get into the voice area. A lot of POTA activations use 20, so we may come across one here in just a few. Wow, it is so quiet up here. Boy, the signals just jump right out. One of those great days where you can have a lot of activity and not necessarily have to worry about stepping on somebody. Yeah, a lot of good activity on 20 today. And we're approaching the top of the band. And that's as high as we could go if we wanted to transmit successfully and legally. Sounds like a POTA activation going right now. So I'm happy. Noise floor, once again here on 20. Let's get somewhere where there's not any activity. It's going to be tough on a day like this. It's such a good band right now that everybody's out there doing some work on 20. But again, noise floor, really low. And I'm not seeing any interference from machinery or external factors. So this site would be really good as well for 20 meters. Well, next, we're going to move up to 40 meters. Could be noisier. Let's take a look. Okay, so we're down here at the bottom of 40. We did skip over 30. Some of you might be wondering, Brian, why are you skipping over 30? We're probably not going to touch 30 for this remote HF station. We can always come back to it if we think there might be a reason to use it, but we're going to go straight to 40. I'm at the very bottom of the band. You can see from a noise floor standpoint, there's a little bit more noise and we're getting a little bit of horizontal banding, which usually indicates we've got maybe some static or a storm. Now, there are some storms down in the Gulf of Mexico, and even though we're up here in Kentucky, sometimes that will show up on the scope as horizontal banding. I'm more interested in vertical banding. Vertical banding usually will show up as electronic equipment or environmental factors that are going to interfere. Not seeing a lot of that, so I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing there, at this point. Let's go up the band, and let's see what digital sounds like. Little CW there and some lightning crashes. Some more CW. Of course, we're still pretty low. Good deal. Like to see CW on the bands. There's some digital. I'm not one of those people that can look at the scope and tell which digital that is. But we have several members in the club that are heavy into FT8, excuse me. Now, as we move into the voice portion, look at that noise floor. It's starting to come up a bit.
Okay, explain that again. It's like four little bent gold wing, gold.
Sorry about that. I had to take care of some sniffles. We've had such warm weather, the trees are already blooming this part of March. We're going to get 5 inches of snow tomorrow, it looks like, but the pollen is bad. So coming up into the band, let's see what we've got. Now, the noise floor has picked up substantially as we move into the voice part of the band. And could be some interference here. Notice it's a steep drop-off at about 140. And then as we move up, we're able to get some signals, but you can see that noise floor has come up. Now again, 40 meters is more susceptible to storms and things to our south. We definitely have some. I don't know if we could attribute this type of noise to that. See how it cleared up quite a bit? So I'm going to put this on static, because once it clears up, you can see that we've got some pretty good banding of signals, people that are actually using the band today. But then the static builds up in the atmosphere. I think that's what that is. So I'm not seeing external influences. I'm looking at atmospheric conditions today. We might come up here on another day and it would be a lot clearer. But you can see after a crash, it clears up a bit. And it's not on a set pattern like you would see with some electronics. So I'm going to couch this, or to blame some of the atmospherics a little bit south of us. Let's go ahead and finish out the band. See, it's getting quieter as we move out. And we're done. So 40 not too bad. We definitely have got some atmospherics, I think, but I'm not seeing what I would think would be environmental, something that's low in this locale that would be causing problems. I don't think I'm seeing that today. So 40 meters I think would be doable. Let's try 80. It's the wrong time of day, but let's see if we see any environmental problems on 80. Okay, we're now on 80 meters. I'm all the way down at the bottom. Noise floor is good, even during the middle of the day. So I'm not seeing a whole lot. That horizontal band that you see there could in fact be a lightning crash. Again, we have a little bit of weather to our south, but as we move up the band, it looks pretty quiet. Something digital there. Occasional horizontal band. Might be a signal right in here. Hoping it'll come back. I just want to see if I can pick it up. This off-center fed dipole antenna really is sensitive. There we go. Very clear. Now the signal's not strong, about an S3, but I can hear it. And if the noise floor was poor, that would be tough to hear without headphones on. So that's not bad. That's not a very strong signal, and it's coming through nice and clear. So that's what we're looking for, low noise floor. Now, as we come up into the band, you can start to see a little bit more of the noise floor coming in. Similar to what we saw in 40 meters, I'm going to attribute that to atmospherics today, but it's not bad. Again, I'm not seeing vertical banding that you would see sometimes with a poor wall wart or something like that that might be nearby. Now, I'm not sure how much we'll use 80 meters. A lot of rag chewing up there, but never know. But overall, I'm not seeing what I would think would be interference. But there's definitely some up here. But see that crash and then it goes away. A lot of times if it's locally environmental, it just never goes away. When you start to see those black horizontal bands, that's usually right after a thunder crash, a lightning event. That's near enough that this antenna is picking it up. But overall, pretty happy with what I'm seeing here as well. Now this is way up on the band, but still, down where a lot of people are, about 3,800 and above, especially for like POTAs and things like that, it's pretty black. And we've already heard some signals down there. There we go. So again, pretty happy. And this is the middle of the day, which you wouldn't necessarily want to be looking at this band during the middle of the day. If I were looking at this at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, it might actually look even better. And again, it just depends on what's going through the area. Once spring really kicks in, especially in southeastern Kentucky and in the south, we'll get a lot of thunderstorms. So 80 sometimes is problematic, and 160 as well. Let's move over to 160. We didn't do 160 at the other site survey, but again, we're just receiving today. I'm not trying to communicate on 160, but let's take a look at it. Alrighty, so I switched over to 160. We've got some interest in the club for 160, so we may end up putting an antenna up here where we can actually switch over, or several antennas, and switch over to 160. Of course, it requires a length of wire, but let's just take a look at the band. It's really quiet even during the middle of the day here, and we're going to swing all the way up to about 2 megahertz, so looking good actually. I'm not seeing, again, any locally produced interference. I'm wondering if we might be able to catch somebody on 160. Middle of the day, I don't know. Kind of doubt it. Yeah. There's some kind of interference. Might not be local, though. And we're done. So, as far as the band goes, pretty darn quiet. I would think, looking at all the bands that we've looked at here on this site survey on one day, that things look pretty good. See a little bit of that vertical banding? That's usually from some type of an interference. Something in the area. 160 is really sensitive to this, or susceptible to this, so there could be something in the area that could cause an issue on 160. It just depends on what frequency you're trying to use on 160, or whatever it is you're trying to do. But overall, not bad. Noise floor is pretty low, but I am seeing some of that vertical banding. Hopefully that's coming through on the camera. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. You know, noise floor and some of that vertical banding that usually shows some type of interference. There's something that this antenna is picking up that would be some type of interference in those regular intervals that you see there on the screen. Well, let's come back in the next segment and summarize what we've seen. And do we make a decision just yet on which of our repeater sites might be best for a remote HF station? Stay tuned, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so what have we seen thus far? Well, the 88 site, the first site survey, seemed to be very quiet and also seemed to be readily available for all the bands that we tested. At the 150 abandoned repeater site, pretty much the same picture. We did do a 160 sweep, and there might have been a little bit of interference there, but that was a band we didn't even check on the 88 site. So In all fairness, both of these sites are actually going to potentially be great sites for a remote HF station. So we'll have to wait until part 3 when we select our location. Alrighty, for the Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association, I'm KY4BDP Brian. Stay tuned for part 3 and let's see which site we go to. 73.